Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes there to just make sure we've everyone on board before we start. Um, there will be quite a few, I suppose, written exercises and reflection exercises during this workshop. So if you had a diary and a notebook with you, if you haven't got it, maybe just give yourself a minute or two there to search the house for a copybook or a diary or a pen and a biro. And we'll kick off there in another 1 or 2 minutes. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to kick off there. I think with everyone we're going to have tonight. First off, I'd really like to express my gratitude to everyone for, I suppose, showing up tonight and signing up to the first webinar in our series. I don't take the responsibility lightly to have your attention for the next 90 minutes. I realize the many things that people have on their lives between family and work and hobbies and other relationship issues that maybe come up from time to time. So I really appreciate the fact that you've given your time tonight to the workshop. I'd also love to see where, we do give this focused time and this 90 minutes to yourself and your own development. So my research would tell me if we have a phone in front of us, we're likely to check it maybe every 3 to 4 minutes. So if we could put that device, maybe our notifications, within 20 meters of us, we're more than likely not to pick it up and be distracted by it. So I'd love you to just give your undivided attention to yourself and your own development and some of the learnings from tonight, about being present and being attentive to yourself and your own needs over the next 90 minutes. So part of that is putting as little obstacles in your way to having your best focus and the best attention towards tonight. So if you could put it outside the room, put it in a drawer in the boot of the car, whatever you need to do in the next 20 or 30 seconds, but try and give this 90 minutes your best effort for the day, and let's just really lock into the present moment around that and forget what's gone before today and forget what's on later on this evening, and just really hone in on your development for the next 90 minutes. So I suppose my reason for putting on this workshop, over the last 8 or 9 months, we have had such a changing environment and changing experience as human beings, both in Ireland and all over the world. And, when I think back to last March, when this maybe kicked off, from a business perspective, I think everyone had to really adapt and change. And I know my business model was nearly defunct at the start of March, and I had to flip it and change it and work to an online model and online process, and probably lost my main clients as a result of that. But with every silver lining, there is another opportunity that comes from it. And we've all lost maybe relationships. We're not as close to family members and friends over the last number of months. We've probably in our businesses lost income. We've lost clients at different times, and maybe some people on the call this evening have lost loved ones. So it's been a really challenging last 8 or 9 months for everyone. And, I wanted to put on this workshop because I was looking at a number of studies over the last couple of weeks around particularly youth mental health. With Jigsaw did a study there, and, the amount of young people, I suppose, struggling at the moment with a drop in self-esteem, a drop in life satisfaction, and really a drop in optimism about the future. And then another study by Maynooth University kind of gauged 1,000 people, and over 45% of those people were feeling a sense of loneliness and isolation at the moment. And that can lead to other difficulties around mental health, around anxiety and worry and concerns, and maybe in depression over the last number of weeks for people. So I wanted to put on an impactful kind of hour and a half here this evening where people, I suppose, would look at first our own inner world. And when I think of this inner world that we have, it's like a garden, and we start to, I suppose, weed it and plant it with the right food and the right nutrition. We start to give it the right thoughts and the right experiences. It's amazing how our outer world and our outer environment starts to change. And in my early 20s, I always thought confidence was a thing that I got from maybe playing sport, and it was outside me, and I had to do well in sport to gain confidence. And then later in my life, I probably thought happiness was something that was provided by my job all the time, or was provided by the people I was with, or was provided when I was traveling. And I thought maybe clarity had come when, I found the career I loved, or when I won my All Ireland, or when I got a new house or a new car. And, very quickly you kind of find that these do kind of provide with a sense of happiness and a sense of confidence in the moment, but quickly it probably moves and you have to look for the next thing and the next thing maybe to provide that inner confidence. So tonight I really want you to start to dive into your own outlook on life and your own inner world, your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own beliefs, your own values. And from that, you'll find your own inner strength and your own potential is absolutely massive. And I believe everyone on this call has the potential to have a great life and achieve whatever dreams and ambitions they want in their life. And when I think of one thing tonight, it's around fear. And fear is a funny thing because we're born with only two fears: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. But unfortunately, we start to grow up in different environments. We're surrounded by maybe teachers or coaches or friends or family who start to maybe cultivate other fears in us. And for me, a long time in my voice around my sports career, around my professional career, would often tell me that I wasn't good enough. And that would hold me back from maybe fulfilling my potential in my sport or my career. And at different times when you have setbacks, that voice would start to rear its ugly head again on me, and I'm not good enough, and that imposter syndrome. So today I really want to show you ways of maybe dealing with those inner fears that we all have, dealing with that inner critic or inner voice we all have, and how we can maybe navigate that to, cultivate that calmness we're all born with, that inner confidence we're all born with, and that inner strength we're all born with. So the basis tonight's workshop will start to look at some of the helpful and unhelpful thinking patterns we have around our mindset, start to look at our emotions and our emotional response to setbacks, maybe and failures, and how we can cultivate a more healthier mindset towards that. And we'll also look at some of our guiding principles around life and what helps us to, be real and be strong and be really authentic about who we are and who we want to be in this world. So kicking off tonight, our first section is going to look at, a mental skills overview and what are mental skills, why are they important, what is mindset and why is it important, and how does it influence our choices, our decision making, and ultimately our behaviors. The second section is going to look at the influence of our energy and our emotions on our performance and our outlook in life. And we'll do a little check-in on where we are energetically and emotionally at the moment. The third section will look at some of the key lessons I've learned from, I suppose, elite performance in sport and business over the last 15 or 20 years that we can all maybe harness and cultivate into our own lives to absorb key lessons and bring them to fruition in our own life. Section 4 will look at the role of belief and look at some empowering beliefs we have at the moment and maybe some self-limiting beliefs that are holding us back from reaching our potential in life, in professional and performance settings. And the last piece will be looking at our guiding principles. So what's our sat nav for life? What guides our decisions, our expectations, our choices, and our behaviors? Are we aware of these and the importance these play in controlling what is our happiness, our clarity, our motivation, and our confidence? So just looking at the outline of the 6 sessions that I have throughout the program, tonight really is around that lessons learned and around mindset. The second session will be looking at positive expectations. So how do we cultivate and harness that positive, optimistic mindset that good things are happening for me, that the future is positive, that I can achieve the ambitions that I want in life. How do I set a clear vision for my life around the areas of success that are important to me, be it career or family, relationships or sport? How do I set clear commitments and intentions and goals around those that are task focused, that are action orientated, and that are moving me forward towards the progress that is important to me? The third session will look at that whole principle of pressure, what it is, what it isn't, how it impacts us in a performance setting, in our relationships, in our personal life, and our professional life, how we can create a dominant mindset and a competing mindset to handle any pressure and respond to any pressure, and not only just cope with pressure, but thrive under pressure to get the best out of ourselves. Session 4 will look at confidence. How do elite performers generate confidence in the moment? How do they generate confidence on a daily and weekly basis? And where does confidence come from? And how do we make sure we're focusing the spotlight on our strengths and what we can do, and we approach success rather than avoiding failure? And the importance around our performance. And when I mention the word performance, I feel we're performing in our careers, we're performing in our relationships, we're performing in our sport, we're performing in our hobbies. So performance runs across every domain in our lives. But the most important attribute around performance, and one of the most important attributes, is recovery. So we'll be looking at the 4 dimensions of energy, both the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical, and how I energize each of those buckets on a daily basis to ensure that I'm turning up in the best form possible for my job and for my relationships and my hobbies or my passions. And the last session will be around detaching. So sometimes in life, our mind can over-identify with, the sports person or the business person or the parent. And we don't give ourselves a break from that at different times and escape from that. So when we have success in that area, maybe we feel a sense of accomplishment, a sense of confidence, a sense of worthiness. And we can't switch off from it, and maybe we're constantly on thinking about how we get better at that, thinking of how we make progress, and we don't understand we need to separate from our performance to get the best out of ourselves and to move into a space of contentment where I'm peaceful, I'm restful, and I'm just happy with who I am, what I have in my life right now, and I'm grateful. So detaching and separating from what I do from who I am. The next piece we're going to move on to is kind of an outline of how I feel this kind of process works over the 6 sessions. So at the very core of every human being, we have a belief system. What do I mean by beliefs? What I believe to be true about myself, about others, about the environment, about society, about the competition maybe. All those beliefs have an impact on how I respond, how I motivate myself, how I generate confidence, whether I approach a thing or I avoid going towards a thing. My values are a really important thing around what I deem to be good and bad, right or wrong in my kind of sat nav of the world. And I start to lead from a place of values, well then I come from a really strong place of confidence and authenticity. Moving next on that pyramid around our purpose. So why do I do what I do? Why do I get out in the morning, and why do I work at what I do? Why do I perform in the areas I do? Why are they important to me? So we all have a higher purpose, and it isn't to achieve a promotion. It isn't to earn a certain level of income. It isn't to win in All Ireland. There's a higher level of purpose for all us out there. And when we get into a kind of purpose-driven state versus a performance or outcome state, we can unlock even more of our potential because we're not fixated on just achieving a milestone or an outcome. Because when you achieve that outcome, what's next? There's always some other level to reach. So our purpose, our higher purpose, is always above an outcome, and it really unlocks a higher level of energy, a higher level of clarity, a higher level of motivation, and we really tap into our full potential when we're clear on our purpose. Vision is another really important thing in the second section around what's our vision of success. So we're all in control of creating and crafting our own success around our lives. And we'll be diving that into the second session. Attitude. What is attitude? Kind of like a collection of thoughts that are consistent around a person or a thing or a situation that comes up for us. So have I a positive and can-do attitude around work situations, relationship situations, my health, exercise and movement? Or do I have a negative, can't-do attitude around certain things? And attitude can be changed, through education, through positive enforcement and reinforcement from ourselves and from people in our environment. And we can tweak that to have a positive outlook and a positive attitude around our life. Goals and goal setting, there's a whole process and a skill to that, setting process goals, performance goals, outcome goals, task related goals. And we'll be looking at that in the second session more clearly. Habits and routines. You dissect some of the best performers in life. They have really clear habits every day around their health. They have really clear habits around their work performance and their relationships. They have really clear habits around how they recover. And it's about understanding that we can all develop habits through the quality of our intention and through quality of repetition to promote better behaviors under pressure, better behaviors in any domain we work in or we're part of. And then, we all have outcomes in life. How do we explain those outcomes? How do we reflect on them? Was when I was successful down to luck? Was it because the other person at the other team weren't very good on the day? And I don't develop any internal confidence or motivation from that? Or do I put it down to the hard work, the effort, the strategy I built on that situation, and I start to cultivate more positive emotion, more confidence going forward? So our explanations and how we reflect on things is so important around cultivating motivation and confidence. So our potential really is down to ability, which we can develop and grow, minus any internal interference or external interference. Internal might be self-doubt, negative thinking, negative mindset, negative belief systems that we need to maybe amend and change. External interference could be crowds, other people's opinion, other people's judgment, maybe the economy at different times. So we have to look at what's the interference at the moment that's maybe stopping us achieving our potential in life and in personal and professional lives. Mental skills overview, moving on to the next section. So just looking at some of the psychological skills that we can develop. None of these are fixed. We can develop these through things like vision and goal setting, which I've touched on already. Committing to deliberate practice. So when we look at the second session, we'll be looking at our levels of commitment. Am I a level 1 or am I a level 5? Level 5 is a person who's an always performer, who's at a high performance all the time. Level 1 is a sometimes performer. And we look at that whole role of deliberate practice on developing those key skills and those core skills in our lives. We look at our relationship to challenges. Do we approach challenges? Do we approach failure or do we approach success? Am I a person who's maybe afraid of failing, afraid of taking risks, and that, affects the level of challenge I put myself under and the level of risks I take? Confidence, which I've touched on, emotional control, a really important thing that we'll be looking at in pressure and that relationship with pressure. How do I cultivate, calmness, confidence and clarity under the biggest pressure and the biggest moments? My attention and my ability to control my attention. So 16 hours we're awake every day, 50% of that waking hours, my attention is drifting. The highest performers in any life skill or any life situation are able to spot when their attention is drifted to an external or an internal sensation that's maybe not helping them harness the best of themselves in that moment. And they're able to lock their focus and attention on the key task and the key delivery moment right in that moment. And we'll be looking at that in the next couple of workshops and sessions. That recovery management, all the top performers I know and work with really prioritize their recovery throughout the day during different intervals, their recovery at night around their sleep routines, and how they exercise and get away from screens, etc. We'll be touching on that in one of the sessions in more deeper thought process in session 5. Mental practice. What do I mean by that term? So you may be a business leader, you may be a sports performer, and you may have a really important situation coming up. It could be a presentation in front of 50 or 100 or 200 people. I may have no experience in that situation, but I can use a thing called visualization to start to create that experience as if it has already happened. And I can start to build that experience database 50 or 100 times prior to that experience. And I've done this with top performers in sports and business around key moments, and it's helped to reduce that performance anxiety, start to build confidence in yourself, start to build clarity. And it's almost as if I've done this 100 and 150 times before it has happened. And you're able to deliver your potential in that moment. And the importance around learning and reflection is another really key skill that we need to look at and develop in ourselves and how we explain success and failure. And then around mental skills, I also look at leadership skills with people and clients. So how we relate to ourselves, our self-awareness, understanding our own emotional responses and reactions, our emotional control under pressure. Am I a person who's reactive, angry and hostile, or am I calm and clear? My self-reliance. Am I able to make those small commitments every day around my health, around my professional life, or am I someone that reneges on those commitments and I don't build my commitment bank? I lack integrity at key moments. Confidence I've touched on regularly so far. We'll be developing that. Relating to others. So am I able to be straightforward in my dealings with people if they're not working as hard as I'd like in my team? Maybe they're not delivering on a project that I want at a really high standard. Maybe it's in my family relationships where I have to deal with an issue. My relationship skills, my ability to connect with people, not just on a mental, but also on an emotional and on a physical level, to create connection, trust, people feeling valued and respected. Am I able to empathize with people in my life around difficult situations and difficult moments for them, and be a support to them and a listening ear, being non-judgmental around that and non-critical? And how I relate to the environment that I'm in, be it a work context or the overall broader picture of the world. Am I able to adapt to the changes that happened the last 6 or 8 weeks or 6 or 8 months in some cases? Am I optimistic about the future? Do I expect good things to happen? Do I see failure as just a component that happens in a certain situation and it doesn't transfer to all other areas of my life? Am I optimistic about the success that I can achieve in my life? And at the highest level of self-actualization, do I feel I can reach my potential in my personal and professional life? And then there's also, the motivational team climate that we create in our business or in our work context or our team context. And is that a team climate that allows people to operate at their best? Does it allow people to feel respected, feel valued, feel connected? And do we create that in our business and in our teams? So that's kind of a mental skills overview and how it looks like from an individual, a leadership point of view and a team or organization point of view. So just for your own reflections at the moment, if you were to look at mindset and that word for a minute, and what it is, it's a collection of thoughts we have around a certain thing or a certain situation. And if I'm thinking positively and a can-do attitude around a work project I have, a sports situation that's coming up, how much does that positive mindset, that thinking pattern, have an influence around my performance? When I set myself a positive expectation around the future and the outcome, how much does that play a role in my performance? Is it 0%, not at all, or 100% is extremely important? So just have a little reflection on that yourself for a minute or two. And if you do deem it as important and it is high on a percentage for you, how much time are you or your team or your business putting into developing those mindset skills on a daily and weekly basis? So there's probably a gap for some people around the importance they put into something versus how much they're actually training it. So now we're going to look at some elements of training that mindset over the next 45 minutes or so. So first exercise I want you to look at is growth versus fixed mindset. And this was, I suppose, a study by Carol Dweck. And she looked at, I suppose, talent and intelligence in an education setting. And people who believed that their talent was fixed, that intelligence couldn't be developed, scored lower on their exams, put in less effort when they failed, respond poorly to setbacks and challenges, went defensive when they got feedback around their exams, and generally started to blame things outside of themselves and put less effort into their education settings and consequently didn't develop. When Carol Dweck started to teach kids in America from disadvantaged schools in the likes of New York on this growth mindset principles, and taught them that if they had a mindset of not yet around a skill that they hadn't developed, so in maths or English, if they got a percentage score of 40% in an exam and they got their feedback and they said not yet around that feedback, that they hadn't developed that skill fully, they found those students went back and realized that they could develop those skills with the right effort, with the right feedback, with the right mental framework. They could develop any skill and develop any pattern. And over a couple of weeks and months, these lower level schools that were ranked really low on these maths and English scores in the country of America started to rise and rise till they've come into the top 3 in America because of working on this growth mindset. So I'd like you to practice rating your skills around growth mindset at the moment. And this is not a reflection on you and your self-worth. It's a competency, it's a behavior, it's a skill. So there's 5 categories there at the moment. If you were to say on the first one around your skills that at first it's hard, but I'll improve, persistence is key. Would you feel you're not at all on that scale, or you're 10 out of 10 in that scale? Do you feel that challenges are something that you embrace, that you put yourself outside the comfort zone a couple of times a week where you feel a bit of emotional distress or disturbance? You start to stretch yourself in projects and work, you stretch yourself maybe in your sports domain, and you seek out those moments where you're going to be challenged. Are you a person that feels that with more effort, with more practice, I can develop any skill and I can get any better, and by developing some key strategies I will get better? Am I a person who seeks out feedback after a setback? What went well? What can I improve on? Do you look for opinions of coaches or co-workers or managers or leaders who are the best in their field and maybe could give you that honest feedback? And how are you relating to setbacks? Are you a person that maybe blames others, blames external factors like the weather or the bounce of the ball or the economy? Or do you take some responsibility around your own strategy, around your own preparation, around what you delivered in that moment? So just taking a pen and paper, if you could identify in those 5 key categories your score out of 10 and your overall score out of 50. And reframing and looking at this from the positive to start with. So what of these skills are your strong areas? Identify the top 2 or the top 1. What is an area of improvement? And what area is a development need that needs urgent attention right now? So what is an improvement area? And what is a developmental need that needs attention urgently and right now? And I'd like you to identify one action or one behavior that you're going to try and develop. So if it's feedback is an area you want to develop, who could you seek out feedback from in your field that would give you, I suppose, honesty and clarity around your level of performance at the moment? And how could you view that as a gift to improve your performance in your chosen field? If embracing challenge maybe is an area that you want to develop, what's one thing you could do tomorrow or this week that might be outside your comfort zone? So that might be trying something new. It might be expressing something to someone in your team or someone in your family around an issue that you're having. It might be reaching out to a new client that you've held back from over the last couple of weeks, approaching or having a conversation with. So by building awareness around our growth and fixed mindset, skills or behaviors, hopefully this creates our ability to view choices we have around developing it. And this starts to change the outcomes we're having in our personal and professional life. The next section we're going to move into is around having a personal check-in around our energy and emotions at the moment. And for me, at the top of the pyramid is our thinking and our feeling. And we know that our thoughts and our feelings and emotions influence our behavior. So it's really important to check in and see what emotions and energy I'm carrying at the moment that is maybe driving some of the behaviors that I'm having. And in sport, I suppose a great example of this would be the All Blacks, where they look at it from a red and a blue head point of view. So if we were to look at ourselves as a red head at the moment, and these may be the days where I'm in survival mode. I'm focused on the outcome. I'm quite defensive. Maybe I'm angry or I'm hostile. And maybe the dialogue and doubt in my head is I can't do this, and I'm disconnected from the present moment. I'm focused on the outcome in the future and what might happen, or I'm stuck in the past and a failure that came up for me. And I'm really focused on things I can't control and what I have and I don't have. And then we have days during the week where we're in a dominant mindset. I'm clear, I'm task orientated, I'm confident, I have a trust in my inner self. I'm still, and I have a do, and I'm connected to just doing that task in the moment. And I'm really focused on things I can influence, things I can control. I'm really clear on what I have and what I want to do, and I'm approaching success. So, I would say during the week, it's trying to get into a place where 10 or 15% of the time I'm in that blue-headed state, that dominant state. Maybe another 50 to 60% of the time I'm in a competing zone where I'm trying to know I'm not at my best effort, but I'm staying in there, I'm working hard at what I do, I'm task orientated, and I'm trying to execute. And then maybe 10 to 15% of the time I'm in a survival mode where I realize I'm far from my best. I'm maybe a 5 out of 10, and I maybe needs help or support from others in my team or my life to get through the difficulty of the day or the difficulty of the task. So realizing that we can't be always in a dominant mindset, and some days we're in survival mode, and some days it's an effort and a challenge, but we've got to stay competing to be our best. So how can we maybe understand this a bit more? So I'm going to put a graph in front of you here, and it's called the energy and emotion matrix. And at the top of that graph, we have a high. So high stands for high emotion. High stands for high energy. And at the bottom of the graph is low energy. And on the left, we have negative, which refers to negative emotions. And on the right refers to positive emotions. So people who are high in energy and positive in emotion, when they're in a performance zone, they may feel some emotions like energetic, hopeful, challenged, confident, focused, and passionate. People can be in low energy, but in a positive emotion. When they're in a recovery zone, they feel maybe carefree, content, peaceful, relieved, mellow, relaxed, and maybe unfocused. And this is a nice place to be, in that recovery zone where I'm low on energy. And then at different points of the last month, we may have been in a place where we're high in energy, but we're in a negative emotion. And we're in that survival zone where we feel angry, we maybe feel frustrated, we maybe feel tense, defensive, maybe we're fearful around situations or the future, and maybe we're quite anxious because we're spending a lot of time worrying about things outside of our control or worried about the future. We can also be in a low energy and a negative emotion, and we're in that burnout zone where we feel exhausted, burnt out, defeated, hopeless, sad, and grieving. So I want you to kind of think for the moment, over the last 4 weeks in particular, what are some of the main emotions that you have felt, some of the main energies that you've felt? And just maybe start to list some of them on the graph there, and we can maybe start to work through an exercise around them after. So just starting to pick through maybe 4 to 5 of the main emotions that you felt, the main energy that you felt in the last month. And when we've 4 to 5 of those main emotions, maybe it's 1 or 2 for people, I'm just going to put a couple of questions in front of you now to consider. So if some of these emotions were high in energy and positive, what may have triggered this? So what might be the activities or situations or people that trigger these positive emotions these positive energy. And if you haven't felt any positive energy or positive emotions in the last 4 weeks, what are the situations or the activities or the people that have triggered the negative energy, the negative emotions for you? We just start to bring our awareness to maybe some of the causes that are factors in the energy and emotion that we're carrying right now in our lives. Some of these habits may be enabling positive emotions, and some of these habits, situations, or behaviors may be causing negative emotions and negative energy for us. And maybe we've been so exhausted the last month that we haven't been able to recognize the emotions and energy that we've been carrying. And this is just a good time to pause and stop and reflect on some of our behaviors the last month, some of our thinking maybe the last month that has created some of these emotions for us, both positive and negative. Created this energy for us, both positive and negative. And if you were to look at some of the situations that are maybe causing that negative energy or negative emotion, and we were to look at it from a helicopter point of view, as if you were looking at it from the third person, and you were speaking to a friend around this, and you wanted to give one of your closest friends or family members some advice around how they're thinking, how they're feeling, or how they're behaving towards that situation, what advice would you give them to help them through this and navigate one step or one action or a new way of thinking around it? Sometimes in life, when we come under pressure and we start to feel overwhelmed or exhausted, we can maybe only see the problem in front of us and we can't see any solutions. So starting to see it from a third person helicopter view, we're advising a close friend or family member, we start to reduce that sense of overwhelm. We start to see maybe other perspectives or other solutions. So when we get triggered over the next week, maybe by situations or people or news, what could be a more helpful way of looking at this? What could be a new perspective or new thinking pattern around this? What could be a new way of reacting or responding to it that would be more helpful towards that situation and help to give us a more positive energy and a more positive emotional response to it? And just start to listen to that advice to ourselves over the next 7 days. Moving to our next section. Lessons learned, I suppose, through 15 or 20 years of elite sport as an athlete. I suppose 10 years in the corporate world as an accountant, both in practice for 5 years and in industry for 5 years. And, starting my own business probably 6 years ago, and the challenges of developing that and developing a company and developing clients. I feel there's been a lot that has happened that has helped me maybe to understand some of the lessons that I'm going to share with you today. And, I really want to read this out to you, this caption, because I think it's very, very important. If you focus on the hurt, you will continue to suffer. if you focus on the lesson, you will continue to grow. When I was 24, I was 3.5 years into my trainee contract as an accountant. And I had failed my final year exams after 3.5 years. And my 3.5 year contract was up and I was about to be let go from my job. 4 months previously, I've been let go from the Galway senior hurling team after spending 6 years on the panel. So I was faced with a situation where I was an unemployed, unqualified accountant and an ex-county hurler after giving what I felt was maybe 12 or 13 years to the Galway jersey. And absolutely there was hurt and pain around that for a number of months and weeks. And at the start, I definitely blamed teammates, management, county board, and external factors outside of myself for that. But at some point, I had to realize that that was going to just cause more suffering for me. And I had to accept the situation I was in. Yes, I was feeling pain. Yes, I was feeling anxious. Yes, I was worried about the future. And that was okay. It was accepting that that was there and that emotional discomfort was there. But I also had to accept that there was things in my development that I need to look at. Had I given my best to my accountancy practice and my study for my exams? No, there was areas of my preparation that need to improve. There was areas of my planning that need to improve, and I need to develop those areas. When I looked at my performances from the All-Ireland final in 2005 to the previous 2 years before I got dropped, my performance that had really dipped and really suffered, and a lack of confidence had a huge impact on that. So I hadn't played anywhere near my potential, and the writing was probably on the wall around getting cut from the panel. So I had to accept that there was areas of my preparation, areas of my confidence that all needed a developing. And it was only when I started to accept them I could move forward and look at the next step, which was putting a plan together and then committing to that plan for 6, 8, 9 months at a time. And maybe to the outside world that would look completely crazy when you train 10 or 12 times a week as an athlete to try and get back onto a squad. You commit to studying 9 or 10 hours a day on top of that to get your exams. But over time you start to improve, you start to get better, you start to gain more confidence through your preparation, you pass your exams, and within a couple of months you're qualified as an accountant, you're working again, and you're back on the team that you dreamed of playing for again. So focusing on the hurt, although it is important at the start and maybe drives you to change, it's important to accept your responsibility in causing that hurt, and also accept your part in preparing yourself for the future ahead. So a key component I want to talk around here is failure. So failure is completely on the continuum to success and achievement. And as young kids, we're afraid of two things: falling and loud noises. But as we get conditioned, maybe as we get older, we start to take less risk, we stay in our comfort zone. Our brain's natural orientation to stay away from threat, both physically and emotionally and mentally, means we maybe stagnate and we don't stretch and grow. I have such admiration for everyone on this call this evening that you've taken time out to maybe stretch and grow yourself, maybe look at ways of how you're living your life at the moment, maybe look at ways of getting better. And that's stretching and getting yourself into that challenge state and that uncomfortable state at times. And for me, failure is a huge part of any year. I failed at numerous proposals this year. My business has failed at the start of March. Stepping out of my comfort zone here and presenting to 25 people around high performance ideas I've felt have been an important part of my recovery and development as a person. and what I've learned from elite sport and business, is an important part of me stepping out of my comfort zone and doing this. And failure, you're further on the line than you think, be it a failure in sport or a failure in business or a failure in personal life. I've many relationships, both male and female, that haven't gone according to plan. But I feel my friendships have become better because you realize the people you want to be around with more. In my relationship now with Michelle, I feel I found a person who's, been really supportive and loving towards me. And it took me a while to get to that in my relationships and achieve that. So, failure in business, failure in our personal lives, it's not something to be avoided. It's stepping into a learning and a growth zone. And it does tell us certain things that went well in our preparation for life, our preparation for sport, our preparation for business, and things in our strategy that need improvement. And it's great feedback to be getting on a daily basis around our relationships or our performance in work or sport. So just look at those two quotes. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of success. Winston Churchill, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. So stepping into failure, realizing it's part of that domain of achievement and it's on that continuum, is so important to continue to grow and develop. The second thing I want to talk to you around is our response to failure. So Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who was in numerous concentration camps, I think about 27 during, that horrendous World War I and World War II between the Nazis and the Jews. And he quotes, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose a response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. So we're always going to have our emotional response to setbacks, to failure, to hard times. And our stimulus might be that manager that delivers a harsh report to us. It might be that rejection we get from a loved one in our relationships or in our family. And it's realizing that in that moment when, our threat detector is trying to put us into fight or flight mode or freeze mode or flee mode, that we have an ability to choose a response. There is a second or two pause there where we can go with a reactive response, which is maybe anger, hostility, bitterness. And we're more working from a feelings-based response, which is very much based on the situation and is inconsistent. Or we can choose to be coming from a place of a proactive response. We're working from our values, where kindness is important to us, where commitment, where honesty is important to us, and we speak our truth around that situation and how we feel it should go. This provides choices to us, and it provides a more strategic response to it. So what do we need to do when, a stimulus that triggers us happens? We need to ask ourselves, what's important now? We need to reinforce a statement to myself that I have the ability to choose my response here, regardless of the other person's reaction. I can create and generate an image of myself of the outcome I would like from this situation. Be it a better presentation, be it a better relationship. And I can choose to respond with calmness, with clarity, and with conviction around what's important to me from a place of values. So we always will get maybe an emotional response around a setback. That's our natural fight or flight response. But in that kind of panic that maybe sets in, it's about having that time and space for a split second to ask ourselves a better question, reinforce to ourselves we have the ability to choose a response, and look at a new pattern of thinking or a new pattern of behavior when that emotional response comes or that charge comes. And we're already building a new pattern when we respond in a different way. The third key thing I want to share with you is around that idea of identity. What I do is not who I am. And for me, when I was playing sports at a high level, for a couple of seasons, I used to refer to myself as I am the hurler. Friends would introduce me as the Galway hurler. And, 9 out of 10 conversations are around the match and how well you did or didn't do and how great you were because of that. And it can be difficult when you get a lot of outside validation for who you are as a person and your achievements in life from a thing that's outside you. So when I played well, I got a lot of confidence from that. I got a lot of happiness and achievement and fulfillment. And when I played badly, because a lot of my self-identity was tied up in sport, I isolated myself. I was less responsive to friends and family, and I was in a low mood and I was in survival zone where I was angry, I was frustrated, and I was fearful. And it's only in latter years I probably understood the whole concept of, introducing myself as I am a sports psychologist or I am a coach or I am a hurler can have different meanings to you and it can have different impacts on you. So I think it's really important to recognize that I didn't invent sport or I didn't invent sports psychology. So I am not sports psychology. I am not sport. I play sport. I experience sport. I work as a coach. I work in sports psychology. And that differentiation or that separation is so important around your self-worth and self-esteem, your mood, your relationships not been affected by a setback in that domain. So we all have important roles in life, and sometimes we attach a more important level of importance to different roles, which is understandable. So I'd like you to maybe look at your own roles in life at the moment. And for some people on the call, you might be a parent, you might be a manager or a coach to someone, you're a friend, you're a colleague, you're a partner, maybe you're a volunteer, maybe you're a musician, maybe you coach a local team. I'd like you to think of all the kind of groups that you're a part of and the roles you play in those groups. And list 5 to 10 of those roles that you have on a weekly and monthly basis at the moment. And that's your first task there now from that exercise is to list as many group memberships or as many roles as you have at the moment in life. And when you've that list compiled of 5 to 10 key roles that you have in life at the moment, I'd like you to rank them in level of importance. So, the least important to the most important, what would be your key role priorities at the moment in life? Which ones you attach most importance to? And again, I'd like you to work on that skill now at the moment of practice rating. And again, it's not rating self, it's rating the skills as a parent or as a friend, as a coach, as a manager, as a volunteer. So Out of 10, how would you rate your performance or skill levels at the moment as a parent, as a friend, as a brother, sister, volunteer, musician, sports person, whatever group membership or roles you have in life at the moment? I'd like you to rate it and practice rating your skills in each of them from 1 to 10. And from that, it should give you a good idea of areas you're performing well in and maybe improvement areas for you in your roles. And I want you to look at the number one role that you're performing best in at the moment. And I would like you to write down 2 or 3 things that have led to that high score in that area for you. What are you doing really well as a manager or as a mother or father, as a brother or sister, maybe in your sport or your music or your hobby? Maybe as a coach or volunteer. What would be the 2 to 3 things that you're doing really well in that area that led to that high score? Giving yourself credit around those skills and those behaviors and how you've showed up in that domain at your best. Now, I'd like you to pick one of the domains where you feel you'd like to improve the most. So, an area that's really important to you that you'd like to improve the most. And I'd like you to identify one key action that you focus in on in that key area for you to elicit that improvement. So that might be as a parent, it might be as a friend or a manager. What would be the one key action or behavior or skill that you'd focus in on developing for the next week? And I'd like you to list maybe 2 or 3 benefits of completing that action. What would be the benefit to you, to others, of you completing that action in that area? So there are 3 lessons, I suppose, from what I've learned in life so far. The importance of, accepting failure is an important part on that continuum to success and achievement. And when we step into failure and accepting failure, we're in that growth and learning zone and we're making progress. And as people, we always feel we want to be making progress in whatever domain or chosen field we're in. And failure is a part of that continuum, and our relationship with failure and accepting that it's there, and we can take the positives and the learnings from failure as well. There will always be positives, there will always be improvements, and it's about reflecting on that and explaining that in the right way to ourselves. The second part is that there will always be stimulus, be it, poor decisions, traffic, the economy, difficult relationships in our personal or professional life. We have the ability to choose our response to those setbacks. And it's really important, the questions we ask ourselves when that stimulus or trigger is happening. What would the best of me do? How would I go from a reactive response, which is maybe anger and hostility and frustration, to a values-based proactive response where I'm honest, I'm committed, I'm calm, and I'm confident. And I'm looking at solutions rather than the problem. I'm looking at choices rather than the problem. And the last part is, separating what I do is not who I am. So we can have multiple successes and achievements throughout the week. And we can have situations where I was successful as a parent throughout the day, a manager, a sports, or as a friend. And I can also have unsuccessful moments in each of these areas. And it's to compartmentalize that unsuccessful moment to that area and not let it transfer to all other domains, and it's affecting your motivation, your confidence, and your clarity. So multiple identities is a really important way to detach from that performance setback we might have had in work or personal or professional life, and compartmentalize it, and it was just that one occasion, that one situation, and it doesn't mean I can't experience happiness, success, and fulfillment in the other areas of my life today and perform really well in those areas throughout the week. Looking at the role of beliefs, next section. So our beliefs, a belief is just a thought that we accept to be true. Whether Gandhi believes it to be true or I believe it to be untrue doesn't matter. It's your acceptance of that thought that is true that matters. So your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions. So words matter. The words we say to ourselves out loud have 10 times more the power than said by someone else. I'm going to repeat that. The words we say to ourselves have 10 times the power over what words are said to us by other people. So be protective of the thoughts you're generating. Be protective of the words you're using around yourself, around your own life, your own situation, your own career, your own sport, your own ability. That influences your motivation, your psychology, your biology, and your actions. When they influence your actions, they become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. So the sequence, what we're looking at here, is really, really important. Your belief system and the train of thought that follows after that. So looking at this cycle and what happens, everyone on the outside can maybe observe you and say, this is the job you have, this is success you had, this is what you do, this is who you are as a parent, you're a manager, you're a coach, you're an athlete, and these are the successes you have, and that's the turnover your business had or whatever. So they're observable results and behaviors to people. What they don't know is about the invisible, what you believe about yourself, what you believe about the environment that you're in, what you believe about others, what you believe about is right and wrong. That influences your value system, what you deem good and bad and what you deem important and right and wrong. That influences your mindset, your attitude, your thinking, which influences your emotions and influences your behaviors. So if we want to change our results that we're having in our external world, we've got to go back to mastering our inner game and some of the beliefs we hold at the moment that are empowering ourselves to the results that we're achieving in some aspects of our life, but also there's results that maybe are not what we want to achieve in life, and we have beliefs that are disempowering or disabling that, and they're self-limiting beliefs. And whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So when I believe I can do something and I accept it to be true, as I can do this, I am good at this, I will have success in it, the future is bright, that leads me to value that activity or task I'm doing, value myself more, and it starts to cultivate in positive thinking, can do thinking, and emotionally I feel prepared, I feel confident, I feel ready, and my behaviors, how I communicate, how I carry my body language, how I act around people, how I respond to setbacks, all begin to change. And then my results change and people are wondering what's after happening. So it has to start at the level of belief, and the level of belief will never outperform our level of beliefs. And for a long time, I felt I wasn't good enough as a sports person. And when I started to look at that fundamental belief and that faulty truth that I held about myself, and I started to change it and reaffirm what I had and what I was good at and what I wanted to do, I started to change the value I had in myself and what I valued in myself. And then my thinking started to change, my feelings started to change, and I started to achieve higher levels of results. So an important exercise for us to look at tonight: what are the beliefs we currently hold? And I want you to finish each of these sentences here, not what you deem to be right, but what you actually believe right now about life, about who I am, about what the world is, people are, and the most important thing to know about happiness. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes there just to complete those sentences for yourself. And again, there is no right or wrong. Your beliefs are your beliefs. It's what you deem as right and wrong, good and bad to yourself. What you believe to be your truths and your falses. And I have a couple of key questions I'd like to share with you on the next slide to just start to look at some of the beliefs that are enabling performance and higher levels of performance and behaviors and results, and maybe some self-limiting beliefs that we all have. And you think of our mind, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Psychologists reckon that 2/3 of these thoughts that we have can be negative connotations. So we all have a negativity bias. So sometimes we need to look at the faulty truth, and maybe a faulty truth we have that, life is really difficult. And we maybe need to look at references to say that life isn't always difficult. And I had moments in my life that, were really positive. The world is a dangerous place. Could I look at the other side of the coin and say that the world is full of opportunity? We have a number of people on the call this evening from different parts of the country who we've connected in with tonight. And it's given us an opportunity to build a community, to look at personal and professional development and look at mindset. How many people in the last couple of weeks and months have you connected with online from around the world that you maybe never would have had the chance due to COVID? And maybe you've had new business relationships or new personal relationships from the opportunity that the world provided over the last couple of months in lockdown. Maybe this lockdown has provided you a chance to reflect on some of your behaviors and habits around your work-life balance, around your health, around the important relationships. And maybe with some beliefs around people at the moment, that they're unkind and they're unhelpful. And if we look in Ireland in particular, the amount of charity initiatives and charity work that has been carried out by people, runs and walks and virtual marathons, helping the homeless. There's been a huge amount of goodwill in Ireland over the last couple of weeks and months. And the government in particular as well have helped out around COVID payments to try and keep everyone afloat and, keeping everyone safe and secure. So we have to look for reference points in our lives where, if we have positive beliefs, what were the reference points that our mind is using? If we have negative beliefs, what were the reference points that our mind was using? And start to look at maybe both sides of the coin. So here's some further questions to have a deeper dive into your beliefs. So in those statements that you completed to yourself, circle the words that have a positive connotation. Maybe put a minus sign beside the words with a negative connotation. Excuse the grammatical error or the typo. And I want you to identify within some of those positive or empowering beliefs, examples or reference points do you have that tell you these beliefs are true? And it only matters that they're true to you. And if you have a negative self-limiting belief there that you want to change and go after, what would you have to believe in order for these things to change? What would you have to believe to be true? So I've referenced a few times tonight, I am not good enough, was a recurring theme when I had a setback in sport or in my exams, or when I had another relationship that maybe didn't come off, or I fell out with someone. I am not good enough used to be a recurring belief I'd reinforce myself. And when I started to look at this belief and say, what am I not good enough at? And maybe identify in my career what I'm not good at and what I am good at, and start to look at it as skills and behaviors rather than attacking my own self-esteem and self-worth. It started to change that belief and reword it. So if there's something you don't feel you're good enough at the moment, break it down into a skill and a behavior rather than you not being good enough as a person. Everyone on this call was born good enough as a person. Regardless if you make no changes from tonight's workshop, you are still good enough as a person. You are loved and lovable. So I'd like you to rewrite the new belief, the new story that you want to reaffirm to yourself about life, maybe about yourself, maybe about the world. and create that new self-powering belief for yourself. And start to affirm it every day, 5 to 10 times before you go to sleep. Start to impregnate that subconscious mind with that new belief and that new outcome you want to experience. When you're after finishing brushing your teeth or having a meal, anchor that new empowering belief. When you're out for a run and you're starting to feel a bit of fatigue, start to reaffirm that new belief to yourself. When you achieve accomplishment in work or in a relationship or in an activity, reaffirm that new belief to yourself. When you're sitting in traffic, when you're waiting on someone, take those moments to reaffirm that new positive self-powering belief to yourself. And bit by bit, by starting to practice that new thinking, that new belief will start to form in your external environment. You'll start to experience the world in a whole new different way. So that's our piece on belief for tonight. I'm just moving to the last section. Bear with me. Thanks everyone for your attention and concentration so far. So the last piece we're going to look at is around our personal philosophy. And this is like our internal sat-nav, how we make choices, how we drive our expectations and our ambitions, how we make decisions, how we think, how we feel around everything is all driven by this sat-nav that internally some of us are aware of and some of us may be unaware of. We may be conscious of it at times and we may be unconscious. And this is probably one of the single biggest, most important piece of work we'll do tonight, because this is your guiding sat-nav for your life, how you make decisions, how you decide on choices, on your behaviors, on a positive expectation. And when we start to work from a place of our personal philosophy and our guiding principles, we're working from our true inner internal circumference diaphragm compass. And it generates great inner strength, great confidence around our decision making, around who we are and what we stand for. And it's coming from an internal source of real strength and real confidence, and it's not needing external validation. And we will go into any pressure situation in life if we can lead ourselves from our life principles, regardless if that goes well or doesn't go well, we can always say that we were led by our best self, our authentic self, our real self. So the next exercise is a really important one to develop. And a personal philosophy is a statement which is usually 25 words or less that articulates your guiding principles in life. And it's the foundation for an optimal mindset, one that is completely unique to you. So what I've tried to create in my life the last couple of years is around being kind, honest, and inspiring. And the definitions for me around that are to share my presence with people and be supportive of their needs, be honest by sharing my ideas, my opinions, and expressing my true self to help people be the best they can be, help the teams and organizations I'm in be the best they can be, and help the world be the best it can be. And the reason I'm talking to you tonight is to be an inspiration in the world by being a role model by my behaviors, by positively challenging myself and others to be the best version of themselves. So being honest, being kind, and being inspiring is my guiding principles at the moment for life. I'd like you to maybe reflect on the next exercise and start to build your personal philosophy. So here are some 4 key questions to stimulate it. So number 1, you might look at people you admire in your life or people you maybe admire from afar and list some of the key qualities or characteristic traits that you see in them that you admire. So that could be a friend or family member, it could be a coach or teacher, it could be someone like Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, Michael D. Higgins. Who are the people you admire and what are some of the qualities and traits you admire in them? The second part of that equation then is to write down some of the great thoughts or ideas that have helped shape your worldview. This could be song lyrics, quotes from inspirational people, lines in a book that have been meaningful, or something a teacher said to you when you were younger that stuck with you. You know, maybe a teacher or a coach said to you, you know, a job is worth doing, it's worth doing well. I can always remember my dad saying to me, make every post a winning post. So every task, every challenge was to be viewed as a chance to compete and do it better and do it better again. And the third piece of this might be to write down 20 or 30 words you love and which describe you at your best. So when you think of peak moments in your life, maybe from your childhood, from your teenage years, from your adult years, a performance situation, and that could be in life, it can be in sport, it can be in business. When you're at your best, what words would you use to describe yourself? Just use as descriptive and powerful words. When you feel at your best, what words describe that? So this exercise may take 20 to 30 minutes or reflection for you to do in your own time. If you want to take a screenshot maybe of this exercise, and I invite you on point 3 in particular to start to narrow those keywords down to maybe 20, maybe 10, and maybe your top 5. And start to notice the words when you say them back to you that resonate the most with you. And the qualities you see in other people are very often the qualities you admire and see in yourself without even recognizing it. They're the qualities you prefer to see in others and want to see in others. So their behaviors, their qualities, their traits that are important to you. And another challenge or task I'd ask you to do is to ask the people closest to you in your life to describe you in 3 words. So asking a friend or family member to describe you in 3 words, a work colleague, a former coach or teacher or manager, people you feel are important and you would like feedback from, and that growth mindset. And just see what kind of words come back. And that's how you're experienced by the people that are important to you. And that will help to shape some of your guiding principles as well around what's important to you and how you want to show up. So if anyone has any questions on anything we've covered tonight or would like to offer some feedback on what's been shared, I'd love to spend 5-10 minutes answering any questions people have on any of the exercises, any of the insights I've shared around mindset, around emotions and energy, around lessons from life so far, around beliefs, and around our guiding principles. If you'd like to type a question or ask me directly, whatever you feel comfortable doing, I'd be happy to field any questions.